at the most timetable. There are a couple of exciting changes. So this year we are introducing food and nutrition into the timetable. We know that it's been feedback in terms of our curriculum about moving into options with regards to technology. We have a food lab, and so we will be now timetabling on a timetable a food and nutrition lesson, one lesson per week, and that will be led by the PE department, and the aim is to actually marry up PE games for food and nutrition to a healthy lifestyle element of the curriculum. So we're really excited that we're able to start that provision with current users going into year 7. They're very standard lesson. They have 5 lessons of English per week, 5 lessons of maths per week. So they have a lesson of English and maths every day. So in terms of the familiar, they will be very familiar with the literacy and numeracy focus every day from year 6. We're really pleased that carries on into year 7. They have a lot of contact time with both English and maths. They'll have 4 lessons of science per week, which again, is a really good grounding in science. And they move into history and geography, where they will have 2 lessons per week, music, art, drama, PE games, swimming, MFL, food, and computer science. They'll have 1 lesson per week. And MSc enrichment tutor time is obviously a big part of their curriculum as well. So we'll be talking towards the end of the presentation about how their school day will actually look. We also don't share timetables right now, particularly, but you'll see the school day. They have tutor time at the end of every day, which is really nice way to touch base with the students at the end of the day with their tutor, how the day gone, and time to communicate any issues that may have come up during the day. So these are the subjects that students will study in year 7, and again, quite similar to what they will have experienced in year 6 and in the junior school. This term, all of the senior school departments have been involved in a curriculum review. They've been looking at the topics that they're teaching, the sequencing of their teaching. We're really lucky in and all through school. The conversations, of course, happen with transition with year 5 and 6 and into 7 about topics that they have already and will be familiar with, to then build on that. So students don't come into year 7 feeling like they're doing the same topics again. So all departments have undertaken that curriculum review this term. They were looking at the topics that they teach. The sequencing of them is particularly important. So in understanding how students learn and understanding that they only will know what is familiar to them. And so learning must build on their prior learning. That prior learning must be embedded in order for them to then move on. And so in departments, they've been working on what we call a spiral curriculum, which draws back the skills that they'll need once they get to the end of Key Stage 4 for their external exams at GCSE. But it isn't just about the exams, of course, that's very, very important. But the aim of the exam, any exam, is to try to assess whether a student has become proficient in that subject. And so the best way to think about it is proficiencies in the subject. So when you spiral back in history, what makes a good historian is their ability to argue cause and consequence, is their ability to see and analyse the source. They are skills that they will need to be able to do should they decide to do GCSE history, but they are also skills that a proficient historian would be able to do. And so the departments are spiral back their curriculum to expose students from year 7 and of course in junior school 2 how they can build on those skills to get them ready for Key Stage 4 and hopefully into Key Stage 5 when they begin their A-level options as well. So the curriculum is designed in such a way that they are becoming proficient in the skills they need to move through into year 7, year 8, year 9 and on to their examination years. And of course it's focused on the acquisition of skills and knowledge, which opens up the opportunities at Key Stage 4. So we have redone all of our curriculum maps. These will be familiar to you from the junior school. I really hope this QR code works. It's one of these moments where you will scan it and it does on here as well. I've tested it a number of times, so I really hope that it does. And again, we'll be sharing this presentation in the newsletter, so please don't feel if it's not
have multiple scans at the same time.
Yeah, it will. Got it. You don't have to write anything down. It will be shared with you. We're getting a document.
No, okay, it's lovely. Yeah.
Yes.
Hooray.
It's actually the first time QR codes ever worked for me, so progress. Yeah. So please, this is very detailed, okay? I think it's about 27 pages long, so it's certainly not for reading now. But what this shows you is term by term through the year what your child will study in each of the subjects on offer in the senior school. As a parent, particularly as students move through the senior school, getting information out of your children can become a little bit more difficult, I would say. What are we doing at school? It's all going fine. Everybody's fine until it's not fine. It's very binary, isn't it? It's fine and then it's not fine. But how can we support them in actually what they're studying in their subjects? If they are struggling in English, in maths, in science, whatever subject it might be, what the curriculum that's really helpful for you as a parent to see is you know exactly what they're studying at that time. What we've added into the curriculum maps as well, which I think is really, really important for parents to see, for students to see, but also as teachers for us to be cognitive of, is how does each topic build on prior learning? So what is it you would expect your child to be able to now do that's then unlocked in term 2 and then unlocked further in term 3? So hopefully those curriculum maps are helpful in giving you an understanding of what's going on in each lesson, and if there's anything in academic subject, please do let us know. But this has been the sort of body of work that we've been doing this term to make this information much more accessible for parents. So you can see, we used to share them term by term, but I think the annual overview helps you to see how that learning sequence and how it builds on from term 1 to term 3. But please don't feel like we can't put this down. This will be shared in the Year 6 newsletter, this whole presentation. So I just wanted to drill down on the core curriculum to give you a sense of, again, how it's built. So the Key Stage 3 curriculum in all of our subjects is of course spiralled back from GCSE and the skills that they will need to do. But in GCSE English, ultimately they'll be assessed on prose, drama, non-fiction and poetry. They're the 4 aspects of their English exam. But again, to really emphasise the point, the exams are really important, but also what would you expect students to be studying in English are these sort of core competencies, which is what the exam will eventually assess. And so what the curriculum then does is it's broken into 4 parts for each year group, Year 7, 8 and 9, and they focus on those 4 skills. So in Year 7, students start with prose, they start with Bone Sparrow, then they move into Shakespeare, they do Julius Caesar, then non-fiction is Leaders of Tomorrow, and then they move on to the poetry section. And the curriculum maps are just more detailed versions of this. So you can see exactly what they're studying, the key content, how they're going to be assessed at the end. Similarly with maths, you will be familiar with White Rose. So one of the ways in which the transition into senior school becomes more familiar than unfamiliar is that the maths department can also teach the White Rose curriculum. There's been, again, a lot of work between both junior and senior school with ensuring that transition is as seamless as it can be, build on their prior learning. And so what sometimes students will say, I've already done algebra, like it's something that gets done, you tick it off. What they will do as they move through their learning is it becomes progressively more challenging. And so they're using their understanding from Year 6. They have an introduction to algebra, function machines and substitution, which is then built in Year 7 into algebraic thinking, algebraic technique, and then reasoning with algebra as they move into Year 9. And so this is what I mean by the spiral curriculum. Students will come back to topics as they move through Key Stage 3 and 4, so that they are then, they're building on their prior knowledge, that it's not unfamiliar. And the more they're exposed to it, the better they become at it. And that's sort of habitual learning. We are really excited that I know Miss Baker has had some conversations with parents in Year 6 about our maths provision and some of the possibilities that we may have in the curriculum from August. So we are going to offer an accelerated maths group. So teaching in maths is setted, teaching in English is setted. So the top set in maths will have the opportunity to complete a GCSE early. So the plan would be that they would do their GCSE coverage in Year 7, Year 8 and Year 9, and they would sit their GCSE at the end of Year 9. They would then do a further maths GCSE that they would carry on from into Year 10, the whole of Year 10, and the first part of Year 11, and they would sit their further maths GCSE in the November of Year 11. And for the remaining months in Year 11, they would cover the statistics module or statistics specification, and they would do the statistics GCSE in the June of Year 11. So they would leave in Year 11 with 3 maths qualifications. Now, just a few caveats to this. Sitting GCSEs early is not for, every child. Universities don't know that a student would have sit it necessarily early. It is not, you want a student to try to get their best possible grade. And for many students, that will be that they do the traditional 5 years and then they do their GCSE at the end of the year. if they are a student who would like to move into maths maybe at A-level and on to university, they don't have to have two extra qualifications in maths either. Okay, so we will, as students come in August, Miss Bacon will be liaising with parents, talking with you about how this will look. The plan is that students will do a baseline assessment, they do already in maths, to determine the set of groups, which would then determine the top set and the plan for an accelerated route. What we may see with that accelerated group is that there are a number of students who we think are capable of doing that, and so whilst we have a limit in class size of 24, it may be that it's appropriate that class size could be 25 or 26, dependent on what we think in terms of their capability of being on that accelerated programme. But this is something new that we're offering. We think it's really, really exciting that they have the opportunity to do it. But I think it's really important as parents, that universities don't know this at something early. It's not for every child, and it's, we are looking for that accelerated programme for those students who may be able to push particularly their proficiency in maths. But there will be lots of communication about how that's going to work and what it's going to look like for your child as we start the new academic year. We are very excited at these opportunities to begin to put this in place for students for whom we think it's definitely an option for them. And finally, in terms of core subjects, is science. So again, very similar to what you're seeing in English and maths. They are exposed to the sort of key skills in science, and as they move through their Key Stage 3 curriculum and into Key Stage 4. So I thought it was helpful to talk a little bit about what teaching and learning looks like in the senior school and what a student would expect in terms of their daily diet of being in lessons, so to speak. Again, probably not too dissimilar from what they experience in Year 6 and in the junior school, but I think as parents it gives you a sense of what is it you would expect to see in a lesson. Routines are very important for students. They get, we all thrive on routine. Knowing exactly how the lesson's going to be and how it's going to look really, really helps all the students. There's a really strong message of inclusivity